Hi guys, welcome back. Dr. Caudill here. Today I'm going to be talking with you all about influencing our kids' behavior. And before we get into that, I want us to keep in mind a few things. The first is that each child, each individual on this earth has their own spirit and their own drives, their own likes and dislikes. And that's not something that we can change, whether we're talking about us towards our children, us towards our friends, us towards our partners, right? Part of the fact that this world is so beautiful is the fact that each of us is endowed with a different spirit, a different energy, and a different drive to bring things to the world. So if your child has likes or dislikes that baffle you or distress you, try to just embrace who they are and love who they are for who they are. So that's number one. Number two is that kids will like their own choices, right? They will make their own choices, and we can't control those choices. We can only influence their choices. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by focusing on what we can control, and that is our attitudes and our actions. And today we're going to be talking about what we can do with our attitudes and actions and how we can use psychology and what we know of operant conditioning to influence and shape our children's behavior. All right, let's talk some psychology. Kids' behavior, and actually all behavior, can be thought of in three big categories. Category one is going to be behavior we like and we want to see more of. Category two is going to be behavior we don't really love. It kind of annoys us or maybe gets under our skin or irks us in some way, but it's not dangerous. It's just kind of bothersome. We would like it to go away. And then category three, hopefully the rarest, is behavior that must stop because it's dangerous or really unacceptable to us, or it gets under our skin so much that we just can't ignore it. All right, so category one, things we like. Category two, things we don't really like. And category three is kind of things we can't tolerate. Okay, along these same lines, what do we do with these three categories of behavior? Well, operant conditioning is the study of psychologically how we can influence behavior. And this has been proven through many research models. It's true for our kids as well as for us as adults. It's true for your employees in the workplace or coworkers. It's true for your partner or spouse. Basically, if we want to see more of those category one behaviors, the things we like the most, we need to reinforce category one behaviors. Reinforcement is any action that makes a behavior more likely. All right. So for category two, the things we don't really like, we'd like them to go away. We just want to ignore those. Do not give them any attention. Do not say anything. Just let them extinguish on their own. Category three, that last category, the things we really can't stand or the things that are dangerous or that must stop are the things that need a punishment. And we typically call these consequences in our parent language, right? So next we'll be talking about what is reinforcement, how do you ignore, and what is punishment. All right, so reinforcement is anything we do that makes a behavior more likely. And it can be positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. So there's two varieties. What do we mean by positive reinforcement? Well, I think most of us kind of intuitively understand this. It makes sense. We've all experienced it, whether we're talking about praise or bonuses at work or rewards or anything. It's basically anything that is accolades, that is good, that is some kind of trophy, shiny objects, golden stars. It's a positive reinforcement. It's something that feels good to give and to receive that makes the behavior more likely. When it comes to our children, I want you to think about this as something that you can be extremely generous with. The really good news is that positive reinforcement, well, reinforcement in general, is the most effective way to shape behavior. So unlike ignoring and punishment, reinforcement really, really works very well to shape behavior. And positive reinforcement is free, right? To give praise, a wink, a thumbs up, a high five, a nice work, some kind of positive praise, verbal praise. All of those things are easy and we should be doing them abundantly. We want to have a ratio of at least 5-to-1 of positive reinforcement to our kids versus negative comments or criticisms. That's a big ratio. So think about just in your day-to-day interactions with your kids. Are you doing that? I know for me, I'm often not doing that, right? We're busy and it takes time and effort to really go out of your way and think about things you can praise for your children and what they're doing. But if you look, you'll find these things. So find ways that you can praise them, things that they're doing well, things that you appreciate, things that you see them doing and being that you like, and let them know. If your kids like things, it can be helpful to have a jar and you fill it up with something. And when they get to the top of the jar, they get a prize. You can do nice bonuses, but simple things like letting your child choose the TV show as a reward, or letting them decide where they're going to sit at the kitchen table, or who gets the front seat in the car if they're old enough to be sitting in the front seat. My sister likes to give her kids brownie points, and she just literally says, brownie points for you if you do this. And somehow that's a big motivator for her daughters, even though it's just the verbal brownie points. It doesn't cost her anything, but they love getting brownie points from mommy. So know that just your word and your attention means so much to your kids. Kids need our attention. They need to feel significant in our eyes, and doing positive reinforcement well is a great way to give them that. Negative reinforcement sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but what it is essentially the removal of some kind of adverse stimulus to make a behavior more likely. And if you think about your day-to-day life, there's many things we do that have been reinforced through negative reinforcement. For example, you probably brush your teeth a couple times a day. Why? Well, it's probably a habit at this point, and you don't think about it anymore, but you were taught to do that to prevent trips to the dentist when you might have cavities, right? You don't want to get cavities. You don't want to have dental work. It's painful, it's expensive, it's uncomfortable. So why do we brush our teeth? We do it to avoid that. So brushing your teeth negatively is reinforced because you remove the negative stimulus, that of having cavities and dental work, by brushing your teeth. Same for putting on sunscreen to avoid a sunburn. So there's many things that we can do that are negatively reinforced. We're going to talk more about negative reinforcement in the next session when we talk about ignoring behavior, because one big problem as parents we can get into is the negative reinforcement trap. So stay tuned. Okay, so now shifting gears to those category 2 behaviors, the things that we don't really love, that kind of drive us crazy. All you have to do here is ignore. And I'm kind of joking when I say that because it can be really, really hard to ignore. But support yourself. Think about things that get your goat. Think about the things that bother you, and try to have a plan for the next time it happens. How are you going to not do what you usually do? Not tell your child, stop it, you're driving me crazy, or can you guys be quiet? Whatever it is that you tend to do and say in response to those category 2 behaviors, see if you can come up with another plan. I love Dr. Becky Kennedy. She has great suggestions for this. She says, if your child whines all the time, you can turn it into a game. Humor is a great way to get around this, but just ignoring basically the negative behavior and focusing instead on something else. So you might want to redirect your child if they're engaging in a behavior that's noisy or bothersome. Give them a task to do. Just say like, hey, actually, I was thinking, could you help me out? Could you do this for me? Could you pick up those shoes and put them over there? Or could you set the table? Or could you, wipe down this countertop? Kids love dusting. They love cleaning mirrors. So give them something to do. Give them a purpose. They really, really thrive with that. But the key here is to just kind of not give any attention to the behavior you're not liking, and redirect to a behavior you can then praise through positive reinforcement. Let's talk a little bit about the negative reinforcement trap, because a lot of category 2 behaviors, things like whining, nagging, begging, pleading, tantruming, these can all be things that we accidentally end up negatively reinforcing. Let me give you an example. So let's say you have a child who likes to sleep in bed with you, is a little bit clingy, and often you will go through this whole process to get them to sleep in their own bed, only to have them show up in your bed in the middle of the night. And most of the time you walk them back to their bed and get them to fall asleep there. But maybe one time in 5, it's the middle of the night and you're exhausted. You just open your bed and let them snuggle with you all night long. You are negatively reinforcing a behavior that you don't love, which is your child climbing into bed with you and probably disturbing your sleep. And what do I mean by that? Well, for your child, going to sleep alone in their room is the behavior or the outcome that they don't really want. That's the aversive stimulus. And when you let them stay and cuddle you all night long, you are negatively reinforcing that behavior. I'll give you another example from my own life. My 6-year-old daughter is often ravenous when she comes home from school, and she loves, as most kids do, sweet treats and snacks. And so what will happen is I'm trying to whip up something for her as a meal, and she'll be begging me for some snack or candy or cookie or something in the cabinet. And I'll at first say, no, I'm about to feed you, just go do something else. But then she'll keep begging and whining and pleading, just one, mama, please, I'm so hungry, dinner's taking so long, I promise I'll eat my dinner. And I am susceptible to giving in. And I hate myself every time I do it, because inevitably what happens is what I knew would happen. She eats a snack and then she's not so hungry for dinner, and she doesn't eat a good dinner. And then right before bedtime, she's hungry again. And it's all my fault. I do it to myself. So we have to stick to our guns and not always give in to our kids' wishes, because doing so might be negatively reinforcing a behavior that not only we don't really like, but also isn't in our children's best interest. Finally, there are category 3 behaviors. These behaviors that might be actually really dangerous, or something that we really just can't ignore because it gets under our skin too much, bothers us too much. The thing that I didn't mention in the last section was that when it comes to extinguishing behaviors, we have to be really almost 100%. The thing about extinguishing behavior is that you really have to be, for a period of time, 100% consistent in ignoring or not negatively reinforcing a behavior that you don't like in order to see it go away and to stop when it comes to your kids. If one night in 10, you let your child crawl into bed with you and sleep with you, then they are going to continue doing that because they're going to know that sometimes they get away with it. And for myself, if one time in 10, I let my daughter have cookies before dinner, she's never going to stop whining and begging me. But if I just put the cookies away and I tell her dinner's coming, like a broken record, dinner's coming, it's coming, and I give her some healthy snack, maybe some cucumbers or carrot to eat beforehand, then eventually she will stop the whining and she'll know that mommy's serious and she's going to give me food and I can wait. So if we want our kids to learn a new skill, we have to have faith that they can do it. And we have to be consistent in proving to them by not giving in that they can't do it. All right, now finally, category 3 behaviors. So the things that could be really dangerous, or behaviors that are so annoying to us or bothersome to us that we just can't bite our tongues. We can't ignore them. These are the things that hopefully are the most rare and that we can punish, basically, with either a positive punishment or a negative punishment. So like reinforcement, punishment in operant conditioning comes in those 2 varieties, positive punishment and negative punishment. Positive punishment is adding something like yelling at your child or spanking your child. Not that I'm endorsing that. I never endorsed that. But corporal punishment is a form of positive punishment. And basically, it's something you do that makes a behavior less likely. We have to be really careful with this because positive punishment doesn't feel good for us and it doesn't feel good for our kids. More commonly, thankfully, I think I see parents using negative punishment, and that is basically taking away something that your child really likes, a privilege or a reward or something that they enjoy. Often it's electronics in this day and age, like taking away your iPad, or I'm taking away the phone, or I'm saying no TV tonight, or I'm turning off the Wi-Fi. And basically that then becomes the punishment because I'm taking away this thing that you like. I would encourage all parents to think very carefully about how they utilize punishments and to also be really careful to not utilize the same thing in negative punishment, whatever you're going to be taking away, as you do for a positive reinforcement. Often what I will see parents do is give their child, say, extra screen time. You get to watch extra TV as a reward for doing something, or maybe you get financial things or whatever it is. You don't want to be giving the same thing as a positive reinforcement as you then take away as a punishment. And so if you think about this, it's pretty logical, but yet with our kids, it's not always so logical, or it doesn't always make sense why it wouldn't work. But think about if your boss implemented a new protocol where the top salesperson is going to get double their salary this week. And so you get really into it and you start working hard. And on Thursday, you are the top salesperson and your boss comes to you and says, congratulations, you're going to get your double paycheck tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. And then Friday morning, you're like, hey, where's my paycheck? And your boss says, oh, sorry, I didn't tell you, but like at the 11th hour last night, Tom beat you and you're getting nothing. So you're going to be really pretty disincentivized that next week to work hard because you just learned that it could all be swept up from under you in a second. And your kid will feel the same if you're using the same reward as a positive reinforcer and then taking that same reward away as the negative punishment. So be mindful of this. Make sure that the reward that it can be given as a positive reinforcer is something that they get and they can never lose. And that any negative punishment should be something different and really always should be something that is appropriate to the crime. So think carefully about what that would be, and delivered in a timely manner. So you don't want to be upset with your child in the store and say, you're going to get a consequence later. And then 6 hours later, when you get home, when your spouse arrives home, say like, you're never going to guess what little Johnny did in the store today, and then deliver the consequence at that point, because then it's too late, especially for young kids. It needs to be almost immediate. That said, the caveat is never deliver a punishment when you yourself are still distressed or upset. You want to make sure that you are 100% in a calm, cool, collected, zen place when you can say, okay, you did X and it wasn't okay for this reason, and the consequence is Y. And you want to make sure that you are correcting the behavior and not your child, and that your child understands that you still hold them in positive regard, that they are still a good kid who just made this mistake. And you know it's a serious mistake because it was something dangerous or something that you really couldn't stand and tolerate. And so for that reason, you have to deliver a consequence, but this is what it's going to be. And it shouldn't be an emotional delivery. It shouldn't be a shame-inducing delivery or a guilt-inducing delivery. It's just like, I know you didn't mean to do this, but you did, and here's the consequence, and I hope you do better next time. I know you will. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you're ever feeling too upset in the moment, I'm telling you both, make sure you give the consequence immediately after the event that led you to implement a consequence. But at the same time, if you're too upset in that moment, don't deliver it then. It's better to deliver a delayed consequence than an inappropriately inflated consequence. So if you yourself are feeling really upset in that moment, it's totally okay to tell your child, like, X behavior was not okay for Y reason. There will be a consequence. Right now, I'm feeling a little bit too upset to be thoughtful about that, and I want it to be an okay and appropriate consequence. So I will tell you what it is later when I'm feeling better. That's totally fine. All right, so hopefully this brief summary of behavior and how to think about your child's behavior is helpful to some of you. Please check out my other videos, which are here, and check out www.theparentdoctor.com for more resources and to send me a message if there are other topics you'd like me to talk about in the future. Thanks. Bye.